Hello, everybody. Welcome to Woman Up. My name's Leah, and I'm joined, as usual, by the lovely Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. And we are honoured to be joined by legendary Angie Jones. How are you, Angie?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming.
We're
It's quite
excited.
the intro. It's quite the intro.
I know I'm really excited to have you here, Angie, because your show, TERF Talk Downunder, was, when I had so many things running through my head, and to find women like yourself just speaking about how I felt was so helpful.
Oh, that's great.
I know.
Why we did it.
Sorry?
That's why we did it.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm not the only one to feel like that. And it was actually on one of your episodes that you mentioned the IWD Brisbane rally. Mm-hmm. And that's where I went along, and basically where I met so many awesome women.
Wow.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's really lovely to have you on. Thank you. So we were talking before we came on as well about how different our states are in all of this madness. Because you're in Melbourne, and that's already got self-ID, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had self-ID for about 4 years. And through COVID, there was not much discernible impact, but since COVID, it's very, very obvious there's been a massive increase in the number of trans-identifying men. Massive.
Yeah, that started here, even though it hasn't come into law yet, but it's given them the green light to come out. So it's
yeah, we've witnessed that. They just act as if it's already passed and they can just do what they want. But yeah, when it first came in 4 years ago, did you know about it?
Yeah, we knew beforehand. I was in a radical feminist group, which were like the canaries in the coal mine. And we all did like petitions when they asked for submissions. And, same happened in Queensland, same as New South Wales. Like, they're going to ask people to have an opinion on it, and then they basically ignore all their negative opinions. And they also ignore the research into, why women need single-sex spaces. So a lot of the process they go through is just token, because they're not paying any attention to it. But they're so misleading too, because when they talk about self-ID, they don't talk about the impact on anyone else. It's all about the trans-identifying person and how this is going to make it so much easier for them. And there's zero conversation about how hard it makes it for the people around them.
Yeah, we even had in Brisbane an autogynephile, self-declared autogynephile, that wrote a submission against the bill.
I know that person. It's Transcat. Yes.
Yeah. And that was completely ignored. And it was so amazing to have a self-declared autogynephile say to the government, if you introduce this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. He's, got a lot of insight. He knew that he wasn't like, transsexual in that sense. He knew that he wasn't a gay man, and he's like, well, what the hell am I? And he found out through therapy that he was an autogynephile, and he's looked into it, he's studied it as far as he can. He's very self-aware, and he's very aware of the negative aspects of his his paraphilia, basically. So he's a brilliant asset to our cause, really.
Yeah. So when I read his submission, I was quite amazed, and I thought, wow, for someone that's self-declared and is so self-aware and so aware of the impact on women and children, it was such a validating submission, but completely ignored.
Completely ignored. Yep. It makes me sick, actually.
Yeah. Why do they ignore us so much?
Because they can.
I'm blown away by the sheer arrogance of these people.
Yeah.
Well, it's got nothing to do with the trans-identified people and making life easier for them. To me, from what I'm aware, I see it as a form of economic rationalism. That if you remove, if you desex everything, if you take away male and female categories, then you only have to provide one service. And so we have hospital wards are now mixed sex. Mental health units are now mixed sex. Homelessness services are mixed sex. All areas that became single sex in order to encourage women to participate in public life. Toilets, change rooms, all of those things. And it's really interesting this week whether everyone's talking about the Matildas, that the Liberal government the Liberal opposition is saying, oh, you know, if the Matildas win, then we're going to promise all this money for female sporting facilities. And it's like, here in Victoria, they're ripping them down and replacing them with unisex.
Yeah.
Like my son's footy club's just got a brand new club rooms. All of the change rooms and toilets are unisex. And on game weekends, they printed out and laminated a thing from the printer, and they whack it on the door that says girls' change rooms. Because what happened was they have, male game, guys have a game, and then the girls have a game, and a guy would leave something in the change room and go, oh, I'm going to go back in and get it out of my bag or whatever, and walk in on girls. And it was a complete and utter accident. But it's an accident waiting to happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
Oh, well.
don't know what the answer is here. I mean, it's just.
The answer is we're going to defeat it.
Yeah.
We have to.
We're going back to like the UK. We're going to go back to male and female, and a third option, but we're going to go to male and female. And the third option is that they may have to just get changed in a small change room compared to the large change rooms. But that's the choice that they make when they take on this ridiculous opposite sex persona.
Yeah. And it's not like we don't think that they're obviously afraid of other men going into the men's toilets, but also they want to oppress women. So it's double-edged sword.
See, I don't think they're afraid of men. I think trans men have a legitimate fear of men's rooms, although they say that they're not bothered going to the men's toilet. But I think, for like females that identify as men, I think that they really do need a third option because they're not safe. But the trans-identified men aren't intimidated by men.
But don't they use that excuse, though, and say it's unsafe for them to use?
It's a terrible argument for their side because it's just admitting that men are more dangerous.
Yeah. That's
exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh, makes me so mad.
So, there needs to be three options. And eventually there will be three options because we want them to feel comfortable as well, just not at the expense of our comfort and our safety. And
they're still a minority, even though their numbers have exploded. They're still a small minority of people, and women are 51% of the population. And we've expected to move over for these men. No, they can have the third option.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not popular with people, is it? Is it popular with people in Melbourne?
Nobody knows until it affects them. So everyone's like, because people say, do you support trans rights? And the person says, yes. Say, do you think minors should have, hormones and surgery? And they say, no. Do you think men should be in female prisons and rape crisis centres? No. So there's no consistency. So people hypothetically support trans rights. But when you break it down, they don't support any of that stuff. They just don't believe it's happening until it happens to them. So when their kid's getting changed at the public pool and a bloke walks into the family change room and gets his dick out, then they care.
Yeah. So when you're doing your actions in Melbourne, Angie, what's the response like?
I would say 98% positive. But we usually have one or two that will yell something out, or we actually in Warrandyte last week we had, because we're picketing in Warrandyte because there's a by-election coming up, and it's one that's very important for the Liberal Party and the opposition leader John Pesutto, who defamed me. So we've been going there and picketing, and cars tooting and waving and people yelling out "Go girls!" and but then we have people that pop over and they go, "You're transphobic." And start to have a go. And, of course, we're polite, we're in the street, and we don't want to offend anybody, so we engage in a conversation with them.
And have there been successful outcomes with those conversations?
The person usually runs away.
Yeah, we had someone, because we were giving out leaflets outside the FIFA when the World Cup was on, And a girl took our leaflet, looked at it. It was just describing the differences between men and women in sport and how sport should be fair for women. And she handed it back and said, "Oh, it's anti-trans."
Yeah.
Yeah, I had because we did it 2 nights, Thursday and a Saturday. On the Thursday night, and she was pro-trans, and she came over and she took a leaflet and she said, "Oh, is this anti-trans?" I said, "No, it's about the biological differences and the unfairness with sports." And she goes, "Well, I have to agree with you."
Yeah.
And she took the leaflet, and I was standing there like, "Oh my God." So even though she was and like none of us are anti-trans.
No.
But they keep saying we're bigots and, anti-trans because that's
You know what? I wish that, I don't wish, but if only they could see what we talk about on our groups. It's women who are talking about how much they are losing sleep about girls getting their breasts removed. It's women who are worried about their children being sucked into this cult. It's people who care about women and children.
Yes.
It's to say that we're hateful is a complete inverse of what's going on here, but that's what they do. They just turn everything around on its head.
Yeah, and we recognise that they need their own spaces, they need their own services, but ours don't match up to their needs.
Yeah,
and they rely on the fact that people, that they refuse to let us speak. So that the only argument they have is to silence us, because any reasonable person doesn't think men belong in rape crisis centres, or in homelessness service, or even female because at the moment all the mental health units are mixed sex, and the statistics about sexual assaults or inappropriate relationships or both in mental health units has gone through the roof. But they're not publishing the statistics. They're not even publishing domestic violence stats or incarceration stats or any of this stuff. So people don't know that there's any effect, because they're suppressing our voices, and they're suppressing the statistics, or they're like messing up the statistics and recording men as women.
Yeah.
So there's this triple sort of this approach where they're just sort of trying to keep us down, because if any of us raise our voice, their whole argument goes out the window. Sport, for example, Women's Rights Network Australia, amazing, have put up billboards in the capital cities this week, with soccer being on the tip of everyone's tongue. Yeah. Now, brilliant, because it's making people think. Yay, women's soccer.
In Queensland, we're not allowed to have billboards.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Why is that?
They just won't accept.
They won't do it. The company will refuse to do it.
So they don't have enough billboard companies.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's the next thing we should do, see.
Or put them on private property.
Yeah.
Just have to word it carefully.
Yeah, so those billboards that I saw the Women's Rights Network put up, they're just brilliant. Like the size of the guy and it's just a brilliant billboard.
That's all they need, is that little seed planted in their head, and then they go, "Oh my God, I'm having anti-trans thoughts."
Yeah.
And then eventually it's like, well, maybe they're not anti-trans, maybe they're pro-women.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and they blink and they're TERF.
I think the tide is turning. I can see something happening.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which gives me hope that this is coming back around again.
Yeah, I think what's happening in the UK, I know Twitter, we're in a bit of an echo chamber, because in reality it's bad out there. But I think what's happening in the UK, like Australian media is paying attention to what happens in the UK and the US, and they're just pretending it's not happening here.
I know. It's just mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, we did an action outside of Shannon Fentiman's office again. Was it last week, Leah? It seems so long ago, but
I think it was last week.
Yeah.
We stood there with our signs again.
Excellent.
Shannon didn't come out and talk to us, but
well, our local minister for women called the cops.
Shannon called the cops on us as well. Yeah, so
okay.
I can't believe the Minister for Women and she's the Minister for Health, has recently refused to meet with how many medical professionals? Was it?
71.
71 medical professionals have signed. What is it they've signed, Sue?
Gillian Spencer's calling for an inquiry into the gender affirming care model. And so she's been seeking a meeting with Shannon Fentiman, and Shannon Fentiman is just ignoring that. So last week, Gillian had 65. This week, it's 71, so it's growing. And she's the Minister for Health, and she's ignoring 71 doctors asking.
See, that should be in the media. That should be, the media should be reporting on that, and they're not.
No, they're not. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. So it will continue to grow, that number. So it will be interesting to see how long she can hold out. You know, and you would think even if there were 4 doctors that said, we're really concerned with this, can it be looked into because it's harming children? But she's just ignoring Gillian.
We know that in Brisbane, they have surgically removed the breasts of minors.
Yes.
No, that's happened. That should be cause for this whole thing to stop.
Yeah.
Well, don't the plastic surgeons actually advertise it?
They advertise it on their website, yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that they'll do double mastectomies on 13-year-olds.
That's horrific.
But they're definitely doing them on 15. They will. We don't know if they have on 13-year-olds, but because of what Leah did, calling that surgery up and getting it was recorded that they'll do it on 13-year-olds. So that in itself, you would think Shannon Fentiman would go, oh, you know, if they were denying it was happening before, and she knows it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they know.
A psychiatrist from the Queensland Children's Hospital is calling for this inquiry. She's been suspended for speaking out.
A woman who cares so deeply about the welfare of children that she's willing to speak out about this, and they fired her. And she is exactly the type of woman you would want working with children.
Yeah.
She's such a compassionate person.
Yeah, every parent would want Gillian to be treating their child. They don't want someone that's just going to affirm their child. They want someone that cares. And here's Gillian, who's really caring, has put her career on hold because of it. Is fighting tooth and nail to get support from I don't know, maybe getting support from these doctors was quite easy, I would imagine. You know, but there are doctors that are too afraid to come out. But maybe once the numbers continue to rise, they'll start to feel a little bit safer with coming out and adding their name to that. But
I think that's the way this is going to be turned around, that people just start saying no, and they just start standing up, and that their workplaces get so freaked out that so many people are saying, no, I'm not having this gendered crap. Or
I don't think the average person knows that children are being operated on like this.
No, they don't believe it, because they watched they watched Australian Story a few years ago when they said, oh, no, we don't do surgery on minors. And I actually knew a child who had her breast removed at 15, contacted the ABC and said that was dishonest, because I actually know a person. I can give you their number. And they said, no, we believe Dr. Telfer, what she said, and you're wrong. You know, and it's like,
do they? They just don't care what they're doing to these kids.
No, and they get away with it because it's the state and the media and the the surgeons or whoever it is, the companies profiting from it. They're all in cahoots with each other.
Yeah, I think it's about 15 to 20 grand for a double mastectomy. So, you know, you think about how many they're doing a week. I think that's what's going to turn this around. The amount of children that are going to grow up to be very revengeful adults.
But people don't even realise that lesbians can't, or gay men can't have single sex spaces, like, or events.
Events.
People don't realise, they don't believe it. They go, of course they can. It's like, no, they can't. Legally, they're not allowed to. And they go, no, we're inclusive.
And that's when you say there are men that identify as lesbians.
Yeah.
People think, oh, you're
I mean,
nuts.
a few years ago, you would have laughed at that, wouldn't you? Because
Yep.
it's just so obscene.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just crazy.
And this is our reality now.
So, Angie, are you going to continue to do these roadside actions?
Yes, because Louise Carrick is a dynamo, and she makes me come out and do them. No, but she's just fearless, and she, it is effective to stand in the street with a sign, with hundreds of cars going past. Yeah, it's effective. So there's one or two people, because it's not safe for women to organise in Melbourne. If we put it on Facebook that we are organising, we will be mobbed with violent anti-fascists, and they will harm us. They have told me if they see me in the street, they're going to smack me out, right? Yeah. Now, and not just me, but, they will harm us. So we have to be sneaky, and we organise in smaller groups.
Are these men
sometimes in
saying
bigger
that?
groups.
These are men.
Yeah, men. It's anti-fascists and trans rights activists. And so we meet in smaller groups, and we can, if 400 cars go past and there's one or two people standing there with a sign, and we're also finding that we go and we do the action, and there's hundreds of people, possibly thousands even with some of the things we've done, see it. And then we put it on social media, and there's a few more hundred or thousands. And a couple of times the media's picked it up, and it's gone into tens of thousands. So two people can be really, really effective. And you guys would do the same thing, because you do the pickets with the signs and stand in the street.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I would do it if it was a minimum of two people. I wouldn't do it on my own. Yeah. But if it was just me and Sue, then that'd be fine.
Yeah. So outside of Shannon's office last week, there were 3 of us. Excellent. And again, the smaller groups, it can be just as effective. Yeah. Yeah, and because the trolls always bag us and go, oh, look, there's 2 people. There's only 2 of you. Yeah. But look, it's working. Yeah. This is grassroots stuff. This is what the women's liberationists did. Yeah. Last week, outside of Fenterman's office, there was a woman that stopped her car, and she was the other side of the road taking photos of us. Yeah. And it would look like she was in support of us, didn't it?
Yeah, she waved and gave us a thumbs up.
So she must be a TERF that was really excited to see TERFs out and about on the street with these signs.
Well, I would love to see it. If I was driving along and I saw 2 or 3 TERFs with signs, I would love to see that. I would stop and join.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of that.
If I was feeling like I couldn't speak out about it, then it would make me a bit more likely to speak out.
Yeah.
Just seeing it happen.
Yeah, definitely. We get great feedback, and we've had people take photos too. And when we were outside John Pasuto's office, it's a very well-to-do area, and we thought, oh, we're pushing it here, because the first place we went was sort of a bit more working class, and we knew we'd get a good reception there, but we went to this well-to-do area. And anyway, this Mercedes pulls up, this woman with perfect hair comes out of the car. I thought, oh, God, she's going to have a go. And she comes up and she hugged us all. And she was really? She's a member of the Liberal Party. And she goes, I can't believe what they did to Laura Deming and what he did to you women, and we'll never let them forget it. And I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Wow.
It was grouse.
It's really sad for you down there because of John Pasuto leading the Liberal Party.
Well, no, it's Daniel Andrews. Daniel Andrews calling us hateful and bigoted and implying that.
Yeah, but I mean, from the LNP in Queensland all voted against the bill, so we know we've got support from them. Yeah. But what happened to you with John Pasuto and being the leader of the opposition?
Well, it's not so much what he did, but the consequences of what he did. So it gave a green light to people to treat me as if they would treat a Nazi.
Yeah. Which is really,
and if you can imagine what some of the more aggressive people in society, the anti-fascists and the trans rights activists, can you imagine if how they would treat a Nazi if they could? Now, I'm not a Nazi. I'm a middle-aged woman and a mother, and but they treat me as if I am one of the neo-Nazis. So violence and abuse constantly.
So he's put you're unsafe because of what he.
Yes. and I am unsafe. I've got screenshots to prove it, and I can guarantee that the people that send me those screenshots would carry out the things that they threaten. And they're threatening other women too. It's not just me.
Yeah.
But, you know, but I got John Pizzuto gave the abuse of me the green light. And so did Daniel Andrews.
Yeah, well,
so,
Leah and I have been named recently by trans activists.
Yeah.
So it seems, but yeah, it's just crazy.
Well, it's a compounding trauma, because being there on the day was quite traumatic, right? Because there were hundreds of men, mostly men, trying to bash through a police line to bash women.
Yeah.
And psychologically, like, you know, that's not very nice. And they're making gestures like this at us, and like, and throwing things at us and yelling out swear words and things. And that can be quite confronting, particularly because a lot of us are survivors of either domestic violence or, you know, male violence, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit confronting. Then you have the media and Daniel Andrews saying that we were with those men. So there's the gaslighting and the lying and the victim blaming, because we weren't aggressive. The trans rights activists and the anti-fascists were aggressive. We weren't. We were doing nothing wrong. We were keeping to ourselves. We had nothing to do with those guys. So there's that lying from the institutions and the state, the government. There's that Orwellian sort of thing, like, what the hell's happening here? And then after that is the trolls and the prominent people abusing you, like literally abusing you, the mainstream media calling us Nazis. You know, so there's a three-pronged thing of compounding trauma. Now, I think I was in shock for the first month or so, because I look back at interviews that I did and I'm going, you know, you're like off your head. And it took me months. And then this really unsettling feeling came in, you know, and I had to go and get therapy about it, because it was the combination of the lying, the violence, and the violence is still going on. We feel responsible that Kelly J nearly got killed in New Zealand. We're not responsible, but we feel responsible because it all happened in our state.
Yeah, because it then escalated with Tasmania, didn't it, a few days later?
Yeah.
And they were really unsafe.
Yeah.
Because look at when Kelly J started in Australia, it was Sydney, Brisbane. They all turned up, but we were safe. And then went to Perth, Adelaide, then Melbourne, bang.
Yeah. And it was the Tasmanian women that first said to me, I think that we feel traumatised. And I'm like, oh, really? Was it that bad? And I get it now. It took a while for me, but I tell you what, I get it. Like, I think I think women generally, because of the way this has all happened and how it's panned out over the months, I think we've just sort of like traumatised by the whole thing that the state and the media and TRAs have all colluded to demonise women defending everything, our right to participate in society, as well as defending children.
Yeah.
We've been punished.
I remember watching Kelly J when she was in Wellington trying to get away from that rotunda.
Yeah, it was awful.
I just felt sick. I felt like I was watching someone that could be potentially killed by this mob.
Same.
And the anger I felt towards like Dan Andrews and John Pizzuto for starting this horrific lie in Melbourne.
Yeah.
That had just escalated everything, because also Canberra was pretty volatile as well.
It was. It was. See, they're even threatening. We're doing another one of those speaker events like we did in Sydney. We're actually this one going to come to Brisbane eventually. Right. Not all the same people, so you might not see my mug. You might see some locals.
Instead. You've got to come to Brisbane.
But we're doing a Canberra one, and now the trans rights activists are threatening to protest it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't we just speak?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
because you make sense.
Yes.
And they can't justify their position when someone's speaking rationally.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also they're toddlers. They're overgrown toddlers.
Yeah.
And they just can't handle anyone having a different opinion. And you're so right. It's given them the green light to just be abusive to women in public.
Yeah. Yes, because you were accosted in the street.
Yeah, I was. And at the time I was okay with it, because I thought to myself, well, I'm not scared of you. But, you know, I've never actually been in the confrontation like that with a man. I've
No.
actually been very lucky to get to 34 to never have been through that. And I know that a lot of women have, but when it happens, it actually does stick in your mind a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm pregnant as well, so you know everything is heightened when you're pregnant. But I just thought he has got the nerve now to just come and do that to me in public, and nothing will happen.
No.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we need to keep cracking on at this, because this can't be what my daughter's going to grow up into. It can't be.
Dan Andrews and John Pizzuto are not going to get away with defaming women like this. You know, unfortunately, the wheels of justice turn slowly. But, you know, these men can't get away with the gaslighting, the dishonesty and the incitement of violence. They just can't. And they won't.
And look at what their legacy is going to be when this is
So
all done.
do you see in the near future or in the future them actually being some justice coming out of all of that?
Well, I think Kelly J has sort of shifted her position on it. I think her bringing attention to what they've done, you know, she is going to probably go ahead after Moira Deming and try and make John Pizzuto accountable for what happened because of what happened over in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So, you know, the things are happening, but unfortunately the process is drawn out and very, very expensive.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking lately, I've been talking to Sal Grover and a few other women about the need for a fighting fund, an Australia-wide fighting fund. So if women have a problem with their place of employment, or they are, you know, harassed in the street, or they confront a trans person in a toilet and that person threatens them with, you know, human rights tribunal or police, that there is a fighting fund.
So the hate speech vilification laws in Melbourne, they're not, amendments haven't come in yet, have they?
Not yet, no, because they're still trying to find the balance. So I might sell up and move because I'm going to lose my Twitter. I'm going to have my mouth sewn up by the state. So, but I'm getting with the cops at my door. God help them if they do. The cops already aren't too happy with me, but you know, God help them if they turn up at my door, because they're going to get a scene like they got for Kelly J when they went to try and arrest her. You know, hate speech, it's bullshit.
It's absolute mentalness.
Yeah, so we're expecting it, you know, we don't know. It's already, the Legal Affairs Committee has come back to government on the 30th of June. So we're just waiting for the bill now to go before the House so they can vote on it. But there was very little opposition by way of public submissions. I think Queensland has got a bit lazy with that. I think it came so soon after the, birth, deaths and marriages bill. But that will probably breeze through, and probably the 1st of January 2024 is when the bill and also the hate and vilification amendments come into play. So I would imagine it's going to be interesting. It's got to be tested.
Yeah. We're going to have to be very careful how we word our signs.
Yeah.
Do a lot of inferring.
Well, Shannon Fentiman was highly insulted by the dictionary definition of woman on that sticker. So I think that sort of indicates where the government's going with this. So if the dictionary definition can be considered hate speech, it's going to be, it's interesting.
I don't think they'll dare.
I don't know.
Let's wait and see what happens. Until then, we'll just keep doing what we're doing and keep resisting, I suppose. Yeah.
You never know. You'd be out on the roadside with your signs. Along will come the paddy wagon. Take everyone off.
Oh, imagine that. That'd be so funny.
They're going to need a lot of trucks, aren't they?
Yeah. But what a waste of police resources. Like, total waste of resources, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But
well, last time when we were outside the plastic surgery, they sent, we think they were sent for us. Was it 2 vans? 3 vans, you know, and
we'd already, because we only go out for about an hour 15, and we had already, the hour was up and we were going back, we were leaving, and the 3 paddy wagons turned up. And so they must have thought, oh, darn it, we've missed it. But they couldn't have done anything anyway, because we weren't breaking the law.
Yeah.
Imagine like pulling up in a bunch of women with signs, or even like, because we had the cops come, the ABC called the cops on us when we went chalking, and they just seemed so pathetic. So pathetic to send the cops round to women with signs or women with chalk,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So I
I've never
wonder
been
what these-
arrested before.
Oh, neither have
That's
I.
fun.
Yeah, we may
Anyway.
find out sooner than later.
Yeah,
The first time I got arrested was in Queensland, in Brisbane.
Oh.
At a protest, the first proper protest I went to, because my dad was a unionist, so I used to go to his union, picket lines and stuff. The first protest I went to was against Joe Bjelke-Petersen,
Oh, God.
and it was in defence of gay men. It was during the AIDS crisis, and it was to try and make homosexuality legal, because it was not legal to be gay. And
Wow.
the cops used to accost gay men in the street, threaten them with arrest, plant drugs on them, get them to do drug mule runs. They used to force them to perform sex acts. The things I saw in the time that I lived in Brisbane, because I was actually working in a gay bar, so I was right in the middle of the gay scene, in the late 80s and early 90s. And it was, the cops were corrupt as all hell. And so, we took to the streets. And while we were at the protest, our house got raided, right? And we had no drugs or anything in our house, but they were standing there going, "We know you're up to something." And we snowdropped a bunch of milk crates to make all our furniture. So we had heaps of stolen milk crates, but they didn't arrest us. So they could have arrested us for having those milk crates. But so, our house got raided. But we got chucked in the van at this protest, just for picketing, basically. It was mad.
What happened when they arrested you?
Oh, nothing. They used to take you back to the station and go blah, 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 and then send you home. They've got nothing. They just wanted to get us off the street where we were being loud.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was a different world back then.
It
Now,
was very wasn't it? Because then they had the Fitzgerald inquiry.
Yes. And that was part of that was because of all the grassroots action where people just said this is not okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
that's
you're reliving the old days.
Yeah, the old days. I've been arrested for duck shooting, opposing duck shooting as well. I've been dragged off by the cops then.
Oh,
There's been a few times.
You're an expert at it. When we get arrested, we'll give you a call. You'll be our contact person.
Yeah. I'm not scared of getting dragged away by the cops, and the cops know that, Why would they? I'm not doing anything wrong. I wasn't doing anything wrong then either.
Yeah.
So if they want to abuse their powers towards women who are aware of their rights, they'd be pretty foolish, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Well, they know that this is what works. This is what is going to work. Grassroots, and they know that.
Yeah. And
that's why we do it.
And the cops know who the aggressors are. Yeah. They put out their media releases saying both sides, but they knew on the day who the aggressors were. They were mortified that a couple of hundred women were outnumbered by a rabid mob of violent men.
Yeah.
They were mortified. They were so mortified and trying to protect us that they accidentally left the door open and actual neo-Nazis walked in, because they had to make a choice between 12 idiots and a rabid mob. And they knew that we were safer with rotten to the core neo-Nazis than with trans rights activists and anti-fascists. Now, what does that say?
I know. Set up that they arrived like that.
It was bizarre.
And then they were escorted, and like Kelly J wasn't allowed to stand on the steps of Parliament, yet they were escorted. They went up on the steps, stood in a line, and did their
isn't it convenient that like everyone gets labelled far right if they don't agree with what the government agrees with? Like if you aren't going to vote yes for the voice to Parliament, if you don't want to go with all the solar stuff, like if you're against drag queen story out, like far right. But isn't it such a coincidence that suddenly the far right, who nobody's seen, is suddenly right there and on the cover of all the newspapers? It's like they need a bogeyman.
Yeah. And it was interesting because of the footage. Is it Rakshan?
Yeah.
From his footage, you could see the media pack at the bottom of the stairs all taking photos. It was a photo opportunity.
It was, and there was nobody took a photo of our event. Nobody filmed our event. Nobody took a photo. We did not exist on any of the media that showed that event.
Yeah,
because that would have proven that we weren't doing anything wrong, that it was a cheerful, you know, like it was everything they didn't want us to be.
Yeah, yeah. And you're all portrayed as Nazis. Yet somehow I think those Nazis were invited into that area because it was very convenient for the Andrews government. They sort of jumped on it very quickly, didn't they?
Yeah.
Pseudo.
See, we've got to watch for things like that now. We've got to really, you know, pay attention to who may infiltrate when we do have an event, you know, and how the media is going to misrepresent. So, you know, we've got to really watch our backs now, because we've seen how we can be misrepresented.
Yeah. It's crazy. It really is.
It is crazy,
but
we'll win.
A great woman, Angie Jones.
Oh, thank you.
You are a legend, and we were.
I'm a dag. I'm a total dag. That's why.
No, you're not. We were so excited to have you here today because you are a legend.
Me and Stas, we just did it because like you said, like there was no one out there saying what we were thinking. We thought there must be other women out there that go, there's something not right about this trans stuff. So if we put our mugs on YouTube or on social media, then people are going to watch it, you know. And then we started people coming out of the woodwork wanting to be on the channel, and we're like,
yes, you and Stassi were the first ones in Australia doing it, the first one. And I thank you with all my heart for everything.
Yeah, so do I.
Thank you. I wish me and Stas was still doing it, but we're just both too busy and going in different directions, you know.
Yeah,
but it was quite easy.
One day.
Then I didn't have to do any work.
Also, what happened with me with the Animal Justice Party last year, and I was like a deer in headlights. You know, I knew very little about this, and then I was invited on with Linda to TERF Talk Downunder.
Yeah.
And, and it was
because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, people have stumbled across the YouTube channel for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, thank God someone. And they don't agree with everyone who's on the channel. I don't agree with half my guests. But you know, like it gives it food for thought and people talking about this.
And you're known in Ireland because of you're known in Ireland because of that lovely Irish TERF that came out.
That's so funny.
And she did an action with us as well. And she was quite impressed that we knew Angie Jones and stuff.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Oh man, how embarrassing.
Anyway, on that note, we've embarrassed you enough and we've taken up too much of your time already.
I'm going to go get my son from footy. He's gotten to the grand final. Woohoo!
Oh,
brilliant.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks
so
for
much,
coming.
Angie.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.